My name is Tom, and it is my job to break into companies and steal their secrets. Secrets such as intellectual property, customer database, tolerance levels, AutoCAD files, you name it, trading algorithms, anything that is valuable to our customers. That means customers such as the financial industry, the medical industry, the transportation industry, and anything in between. We perform the worst case scenarios to see if companies can, one, detect it, and two, try to contain and maybe stop it. Now, that means that if you don't click on my phishing emails, or you don't give me what I want on the phone, I'm going to finish my coffee, get in my car, break into your building, and steal whatever I need to steal to be able to get access to the thing I'm supposed to steal. That means cloud services, that means mainframe, that means all kinds of application ecosystems that you're using right now to develop things, to get new products out, to service customers. And I mentioned to you that we do this for the financial industry, not just the financial industry, but isn't the financial industry known for having a certain maturity when it comes to security? I mean, why would they be the ones asking for these services? I mean, they should have security under control, right? And the reason is that it's banks that get attacked the most. Why? Because they're sitting on things that attackers want, which for 99% of the time is just money or anything they can monetize. Credit card numbers, making the transfers themselves, and maybe in some cases getting information out that they can use for bribing or for whatever it is. But this is the reason why we're doing these kinds of tests. Because most companies still are based on a compliance-based security model. You go into a room and you say, I want to be able to do this. I want to be a trading bank. I want to be able to launch a new app. I want to sell vegetables online. Whatever it is that you want to do, there's always one person in the room that says, okay, what is the least amount of effort we can do to make this legal? And then we'll move a little bit from that, and that's our security model. This is the reason why we have these situations. This is just one bank, but there's been several. And it's very rare that we see a news report like this where a bank is all of a sudden, hacked or had an incident. Because most banks have incidents all the time. If you work for a CERT or a NOC or a SOC, then you know what I'm talking about. The financial industry has been really good at cleaning up these incidents. Now, the reason why we always get in, because I'm part of a larger team, is because companies are not very good at mapping what's called their attack surface. Anything that you see as the interactions with a company or an organization or someone in the public sector, to you is interaction. To me, this means I can attack this. It is valid for me to attack as an attacker. In the same way that you got a pen from your bank and you want to write down something and all of a sudden the pen doesn't work, you go, see, bad bank, The logo is part of the bigger structure of what the company represents, the brand, which means any of these I can use to attack the company. Simple as that. With that, companies need to be able to look at that attack surface on the left and see what are the different paths into what I actually care about the most. So imagine your production environment on the far your right, or your database, or your mainframe, or your cloud service, or whatever it is that you care about, and then mapping what are the different ways of getting to that asset. And here comes the tricky part. Because you're going to come to me saying, Tom, only 10 people have access to the mainframe. Let's say we're doing this for the mainframe, attack path mapping. Great, and how many people have access to the mainframe? Well, only 5 people or 10 people. Okay, yeah, and it's being audited every month, so we're done, right? Well, the 10 people that you mentioned that have access to the mainframe, their computers are part of the Active Directory, right? And they go, yes. Great. How many administrators do you have, local or domain admin, in your Active Directory? About 100. Okay. Can they make changes to put other people into the same group, for example, themselves, to also access the mainframe? You get a long pause, and then they say, yes. Okay, so actually every single domain administrator has access to the mainframe. And the customer usually has to kind of agree saying, yes. But on paper, it's only these 10. Unfortunately, this is not real security. And by doing these elaborate tests, these red team tests, you can actually find out if the security investments that you've been making actually work. Because I'm pretty confident that you've heard this before, where you say, we bought this new box, this new service. Great, why did we buy this? Because that other company, that's a lot more important and bigger than us, they bought it, so if they bought it, must be good enough for us too, right? And the world simply doesn't work like that. Unless you have the exact same threat model and the exact same worst case scenarios, you cannot just copy these kinds of things. Security products and services are meant to solve problems. If you don't know what the problem is, then you're not going to be able to solve it. In addition to this, the industry is pretty bad at detecting breaches. And that's usually because they're not detecting what are the most relevant attacks. Because once I am on your network, or if anyone else is on your network, there's only really 10, 20 things you can do. You can port scan, you can listen, you can move laterally, you can do this, you can do that. But companies are not really looking for those things. They install a service, they install a server, a firewall, antivirus, whatever it is, and then they get hacked anyway, and they go, hey, but you can't say I didn't do anything about security. I bought the box, right? This is why we're not seeing any major progress when it comes to being able to detect these kinds of attacks. Not only that, you are at a disadvantage, because the moment I have been inside your company, stolen what I need to steal, and I'm back out, by the time you have figured out, who do we invite to the meeting? Is it the infrastructure team or the network team? The cloud team? No, the application team? DevOps? No. By the time you figured out who's responsible for what I've attacked, I am long gone. And attackers know this, which means you are fighting your own structure. And that's something you can resolve or make better today without an incident, or without managers breathing down your neck, or the PR team or legal saying, we need to have a statement right now, where you don't even know who's responsible for it. On top of that, this is the classic paradigm, it's easier to attack something than to defend something. Attacks get cheaper every year, they get easier, and they only have to find one way in. But luckily, for the ones defending, the attacker only has to make one mistake for you to detect whether or not I am on your network, so you can start resolving it. So with that, there is no way of stopping a targeted attack. I'm very sorry. We're going to get in. And if we don't get in the first time, we'll get in the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time. Why? Because criminals have nothing else to do. It's kind of their job. Whereas I'm usually on a budget. A customer will say, you have this much time to get into our stuff. So where does that leave us? Does that mean that whatever we're going to do doesn't really matter because they're going to get in anyway? Well, no. You need to be focused on raising the cost of attack. Attackers have managers and budgets too. People always forget this. That means when a criminal organization comes to your company, organization, looks at your security and goes, "Whoa, that's difficult. Let's go to the next one." Your fence does not have to be the highest, but it does have to be higher than all the other fences. In the same way we always say, you don't have to run faster than the bear, you just have to run faster than your friends. That's kind of it. Sorry, friends. So with that, we have no real hope in protecting ourselves if we don't know who we're up against. And for that, we use the age-old classic example of two axes. One is focus and one is skill. So let's start with the basic one, low skill and low focus. These are the script kiddies. We all know them. We've all been there. These are people who download one tool, scan the entire internet, accidentally get in, and then write a 3-page manifesto about how they've always hated Spanish kindergarten websites or whatever it was that they hacked, right? That's kind of hacktivism in 2019, isn't it? It takes about 5 minutes, between 5 and 10 minutes to scan the entire internet for one port. People know what server you're running, where, and what version it has. So if tomorrow that new vulnerability comes out for web server version 123, they know exactly who to hit. But there's still companies out there that are trying to win the patch race. We'll just patch faster than they can attack. It's not going to work. This is why you hear the industry keep talking about this assume breach. Because one layer will fall through. One defense will fail. So what we're doing is we're trying to be the targeted attackers. And we try to emulate or copy as much as the APT category, Advanced Persistent Threat, which is usually nation states with very large budgets. And then to some extent, you have the identity theft, zero-day exploits, but companies usually, criminal gangs usually don't use 0 days. They're expensive. And criminals are cheap. Nation states have more luxury in resources. But there's one thing missing from this. One thing that we all read about in 2005, 2006, which is, where is the illustrious inside attacker, right? Every employee can be an inside attacker, and that's true. Because that's usually how we see compromises taking place. Tom, we have this new thing developed internally, but it doesn't need to be security tested because it's internal. Really? That's interesting. Can I do certain things in this application? Yes, you can. Okay, can I, for example, transfer money? Yeah, okay. Can you give me that URL? And I'll copy that. I'll stick it into an email, and instead of putting an external image reference into it, I'm going to put a reference into it to that GET request that transfers me money. I now send you the email, you click on load external images, you perform the actual request towards your internal server, and I've now performed an action on behalf of myself through you. It doesn't matter if it's internal, external, cloud, or third parties. If someone has access, they're going to abuse it, either through their own will or inadvertently by someone else performing the action on behalf of them. So what's the difference between a sales manager using the customer database and a sales manager who copies the customer database to a USB stick and takes it home? 3 things. Access, motive, and opportunity. Access. We usually interview companies. Dear person who has access to the customer database, how many customer records do you have access to? And they look at us and they say, well, all of them. And we ask the company, don't you think that's a little bit too much? Don't you think it's a little bit excessive that that person has access to the entire customer database whenever they want? And then you get the 4 suspicious words, which is, we trust our employees. Now, trust is great, but unfortunately, it's not a security model. all the ransomware attacks that you've seen in the news? Was it the criminals installing the ransomware on people's workstations that then spread out to the file servers? No. Who clicked on the attachments? It was the employees, the ones that you're trusting, the ones you gave all the access to. So maybe that's not necessary. It shouldn't be based on trust. It should be based on access first, and then we can talk about trust. Second is motive. Keep your employees happy because they know exactly how to hack into your company, where the weaknesses are. And 3, opportunity. Make sure that you keep colleagues honest. Make sure you only give functions to 2 people, to make sure there's segregation of duties so that one person does not have the keys to the kingdom. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story on how we hack into companies, over the internet or physically, usually both. I have about 4 different stories that I've put into one story because else you're going to know who the customer is, and our customers are confidential, of course. So imagine now you're all red teamers and ethical hackers because we do have to stay within the law, which means we have to look up the local law of the country that we're operating in to know what techniques we can use. Criminals don't have to mind that. They can do whatever they want. But we have to make sure that we can do the same thing but in a legal way. There's no other way. So, you're now all criminals, or hopefully all ethical red teamers. We are going to participate in Operation Money Grab because, you know, we call them as we see them. There's not a lot of poetry or NSA code names that goes into these projects. Operation Steel Giraffe or whatever it was. We're going to attack an international manufacturer of electronic goods. They make, I don't know, vacuum cleaners, washing machines, whatever. Their physical location is in 3 buildings on a campus. And they're using an application called Too Big to Fail. That's not the real name of the application, of course, but if I gave you the real name, you would know what it is, which I do not want. So, as attackers, what are we going to do? Well, we need to gain access to the building because the people that we need to attack do not have email addresses. It's a pretty high security environment, which means I cannot just send them phishing emails. We need to gain access to the right department, the right network. We need to gain access to the application, and then we need to transfer money. 5,001 euros. We asked the customer, why 5,001? Why not just 5,000? Because my OCD starts flaring up. Like, why not just a nice round number? And the customer doesn't want to say. They just laugh. Okay, fine. Bit creepy, but fine. And of course, I told you, attackers have budgets and managers too. You do not want to redo the entire attack. So you want to stay on the network. So you need persistence on the network. So, first things first, we're going to find where they're located. Don't put your machine learning algorithms on this. This is a fake map. I've had requests. It's fictitious. We need to do open source intelligence gathering, or OSINT, which means we're going to go to the local city, town hall, and we're going to ask for the blueprints of your building. In most countries, those are public. So I know where the entrances are, the exits, the air conditioning, whatever it is. It also means I'm going to go to social media. For example, this person is on LinkedIn, and because we're all social butterflies now on LinkedIn, we'll have to say what we're doing. And this person who works at a certain company, the company we're attacking, says, oh, I have experience with this product and that product and this, and we're using this. So you've now given me the entire overview of every single product that you're using for your defense. Should this be a secret? No. But that's maybe putting the cat next to the milk, right? Maybe that's a little bit too much. Can you control this? It's very hard. It's people's personal LinkedIn profiles. So this is a treasure trove for us. How about have I got pwned or have I been pwned.com? If your password was puppy03, then I probably know what your next password is going to be. Even if I see that you've used certain information in the password, I can still reuse that for phishing campaigns. If I see a name, could be one of your children. If I see a year, could be your birth year. If I see a name of a football player, I know you're into football. So even if the password that you made in 2012 or whenever the breaches were no longer work, I still get a small window into your life, as do attackers. That also means we're going to go to your building and we're going to steal your trash. We usually give this to the juniors because that's how you start. And anything that's not rotten banana peels is going to be of use to us because people throw away a lot of stuff. Based on an email that you've thrown out, I can see what email service you're using. I can see your email signature. I can see how your email addresses are formed, only with one container of trash. Not only that, we're going to go over social media. And this person just says, hey, I got a new workstation. That's fantastic. But you're also showing me what kind of computer you have and what the most used applications are that you use, which allows me to fingerprint you. Which means I can make my attacks more effective and more successful and thus less costly, which will maximize my success. Phishing. Phishing still works. If you get spam email or weird phishing requests, you go like, who the hell clicks on this? Well, only one person needs to click on it. And I told you that when we're doing these kinds of break-ins, we have to stay within the law, which is true. We are allowed to hurt people's feelings a little bit. So, we're sitting in a small meeting room. Imagine you're sitting in a small meeting room, 4 to 6 people. Someone has their screen attached to the bigger screen or the projector in the meeting room. We all have the Outlook pop up when we get a new email because we want to show everyone in the room that we're very important and that we receive email like it's 1995. And all of a sudden you get that pop up and it says, hello, thank you so much for signing up to the adult content website. But luckily Outlook has detected this as spam. It's not true. Click here to permanently block this and future similar emails. So if you are sitting in a dusty bank office and you're all of a sudden really embarrassed because your colleague saw this and you go, haha, it's probably haha, a friend, haha, you want to make this go away fast. You're going to click on my link and it's not going to go to the website. It's going to go to a page that looks like your company, but it's my page. And I already prepared you for the fact that this will require a password, which means I will get your password. This works every time. We're people. Now, if I send you, let's say, an interesting Excel file, and there's a program in there that provides a backdoor for me to get into your computer, that's not just going to run. I need one of these code signing certificates. And I have to buy one, then use the certificate to sign my executable with, and then I can send to you, and then hopefully it will run on your computer. But when I go to one of these companies, they ask, oh, you want to have a certificate? That's great. Tell us who you are. So what do you have to give them? A copy of your passport. But if I'm a criminal, the real criminal, not the thing, what will a real criminal do? Well, they need to find a passport. Well, not their own, right? Unless they're a really stupid criminal. They want to make sure it cannot be traced to them. So you need a copy of a passport. Now, if tomorrow you have to scan your passport for your driver's license or whatever it is, and you need to save it to a file, what would you call the file? Passport.jpg, .ping, right? But of course we keep that on a private server. I mean, we're certainly not going to put it on the internet where you can just find it with one stupid Google search. These are real passports. There's loads of sample passports, but most of these are still valid. And you know how this happens. You're in the middle of Thailand. You want to go scuba diving. And you're ready to go into the water, but there's some guy that starts running at you saying, we can't because of the insurance. I need a copy of your passport. And you go, yeah, sure, here. And that nice, friendly soul takes a copy of the passport and then puts it on its computer, which is also the web server for the scuba diving club, and the mail server, and the internet, and the Minecraft server, and and Google comes along and it's on the internet. That's a problem. So, what would happen if I send you a package? Do you have a mail room where the package stays when you're on vacation, and then you come back from vacation, you go, a package for me? Or does it end up on your desk? Guess what's in the package? It's for me. What's in the package? A new phone. A brand new Android phone. Geez, I want to get tested too on one of these phones. Yeah, unfortunately, that phone has been recording the entire time. We have customers that get these kinds of phones, and the phone is already recording when it enters the building. Now, obviously, you cannot do this in any country, right? You need to have permission to record people. But there are countries where you can do this. Yeah, but what if you open the package? You're going to see it's recording, right? Like, well, I've written a small program that looks for the camera. And if the camera sees light, it does a factory reset of the phone. So while you're trying to open the package, the phone will see light, and it goes, oh, there's light, I need to hide myself, and it does a reset. You'll find a SIM card in there, but that's already canceled. We have customers that get these kinds of attacks. So they want us to test these scenarios to see if we send that phone tomorrow to a different office, will they follow the procedure? We once sent one of these colorful keyboards that the kids use now to play Fortnite and whatnot. Of course, we bought one of these keyboards and we backdoored it completely, which means if you put this keyboard into your computer, it will say, now installing driver, which is our backdoor. And we put this into a box, and we put it next to a building because we needed to break into a data center. And the data center had its own internal IT team in a building next door. We put the keyboard into a box, and we put the box on their doorstep, and then we wait. If you put in the keyboard in your computer, it will install the thing, and it will make a connection to our server. And then that way, we can climb through that connection back into the computer. And that way, we have access. So we wait for a few hours. All of a sudden, we see connection coming in. Yay. Someone put in the thing. Then 2 hours later, my colleague says, like, we have a second connection. Okay. Maybe the guy has 2 computers, right? 2 hours later, third connection. Next day, fourth connection. Then I get a phone call. It's the customer. It's one of the few people of the customer that know about the test. And he's laughing. Why? Because apparently, if you put lots of IT people together, it's usually men, sorry, they had a fight. Because who gets the nice keyboard? So they made a table. Monday, John gets it. Tuesday, we backdoored the entire data center with one keyboard because the people couldn't actually figure out who gets the keyboard. That's pretty bad. I wish I made this up, but it's actually true. So, what if we do hacking from the street? Well, your phones are right now telling me where you live, where you work, because your phone and your laptop remembers the Wi-Fi locations where you were, and every time you move, it asks, is that network here? Is it here? And if you were connected to, for example, Starbucks or Warsaw Airport, I will see a request coming from your device saying, is Starbucks here? And if I use one of these little applications that says, oh, Starbucks in that location, well, they have that password. I can immediately, in a fraction of a second, set up an access point, an evil twin, that will have the exact same name and password, and if I have enough signal strength, your device will connect to me. And now I can man the middle of your traffic. But it's a little bit weird when you see me walking around your building with a big antenna in my backpack, right? So what do? Well, we make a small setup. We have one of our attack access points with a big battery, and we stick it into the bicycle basket of a bicycle, and we put it next to the building. We have 3 cyber bikes, as we call them. They're just bikes. And we put them around the building. I can remotely log on to the computers in those baskets, and I know exactly when you are in the building. And when I see you're in the building, and your Wi-Fi goes immediately to the access point, I put myself inside the connection as man in the middle. And then on the left, you have the real iTunes store, and on the right, you have mine. Good luck. You're not going to find it. What else can we do? Maybe you found one of these. You might have noticed that the mouse and the keyboard both talk to the dongle, the universal receiver as it's called. Well, I can talk to that one too. I can type on your computer if it's unlocked. This technique is called mouse jacking. It's research that was published about 3 years ago, but no one knows about it. And there's loads of people who are still buying these, and you shouldn't. You should find Bluetooth-based keyboards and mice. And even then, you want to buy them from a big brand, so if there's updates, security fixes, you can update it. Because I'm going to call you up and say, hello, this is the IT department, and I go, yes. Has your computer been slow today? Everyone's computer is slow. Yeah, I can see it here. I'm going to take over your computer now. But I'm actually sitting on the parking lot with my antenna, but they think I'm coming in through the network. I install my backdoor, and we're done. So that's outside the building. So we're moving, we started from the internet, we're now outside on the parking lot, and now we're going to move inside. So how do we get inside the building? This is my hacking kit. If you want to know what all of this is, just go to our website or just Google Tom's hacking kit. If you want to have the long explanation, I also have a complete podcast episode of this on what this is. And yes, the banana is used, not just for scale. If you want to know why, you're going to have to listen to the podcast. But most buildings, banks, data centers, logistics centers, transportation, medical facilities, we break in using a can of compressed air. Which is pretty obvious, right? No? Right? It's the one you use to clean your keyboard. By the way, if you have to use one of these to clean your keyboard, just throw away the keyboard. It's disgusting, right? Every year, new keyboard. When you walk from inside the building towards the parking lot, the door automatically opens. It's magic, right? But when you're outside and you want to walk in after 5 o'clock, the doors don't open. Why not? Because there's a sensor above the door. It's called a REX sensor, a request to exit sensor. And either the sensor needs movement, it sees you walking to the door, or it sees temperature changes. So what do I have to do as a hacker is stand outside and trigger that sensor, which is where this thing comes in. So you go to the side entrance of most buildings, you walk up to the door, you turn the can of compressed air around, you stick it in between the door, and the door opens, and we're done. So when you're saying, yeah, but the attacker would have to come into the building, assume someone is already in the building. Simple as that. Now, hopefully you have access control. Tokens, access cards, a PIN, fingerprint. Unfortunately, people like to run around with their access cards. I'm not sure how that is in Poland. So what I do is when I take public transportation, when I'm on the street, and I see people still wearing their access card, which can be lost, which can be copied, I go up to them and I make a really, really close picture, close enough so I could have cloned it, but I won't because we're ethical. And I have a small chat with that person, and then I put their picture on Twitter. So if you go to Twitter, not now, if you go to Twitter and you go to hashtag protect your access card, then you're going to see a lot of pictures of me photographing, well, crutches, basically. And you're going to see lots of people. I won't show their face, but people just in the metro with their access card out, right? My favorite one of all time, 2 years ago, is this guy. And yes, the Post-it has his pin on it. So I think this is probably the first walking honeypot. I hope. It was an awkward chat. But the numbers on the card are usually the same numbers being transmitted from the card to the card reader. Which is why if I can read the card number, I can probably make a card. And that shouldn't be, right? If there's one part or one point where you can start addressing your physical security, let it be this one. And if you need inspiration for your presentations internally, hashtag protect your access card. There's right now, about 50 different pictures. And people actually give me more pictures, which is great. So don't do that. So we use then to clone the card, and then this is an action shot, that's why it's blurry. We then use that number, we clone the badge, and then we use that to get into the building. Let's say your access card has the number 14 on it, someone lost it. We take the card, we take the value 14, we put it onto our own machine, and we try that one. And if the card has been revoked or cancelled, well, the number 14 was on the card, right? Let's try number 13, 12, 11. Oh, now it works. So if you get one card that's lost or compromised, it could mean that someone is able to get in at a later stage. So when you say the card is cancelled, that doesn't mean you're safe and secure. But when you lose the card, we have an extra protection, right? Your PIN, a secret number. Well, then we buy one of these things, a FLIR, a forward-looking infrared. It's to use in your house, on your attic, to see what is hot and what is cold, so that you can insulate your house better, so you lose less heat, so you save money. But when you are putting in your code, and even if you put your hand over it, and even if you have your colleague putting his hand over it, and he has a personal assistant putting his hands over it, we all have our hands over it, no one can see the pin. You still have body heat, hopefully, which means I can use this little camera for about 250 euros, and I can see the heat residue of your fingers on the keypad, and now I have your code. And yes, this works. So this is a technique we learned from the credit card criminals, because they stand next to you in the shop. You protect your card, you protect your PIN. They record the keypad right when you left, and then they call up their friend saying, yeah, the lady in the red dress hit her on the head because I have her code. This is real stuff. So we borrowed the technique. Now we're inside the computer, or rather at the computer. So what do we do now? Well, we can install one of these keyloggers. Wi-Fi enabled, I can see what you're typing from the parking lot, either as a dongle or in the keyboard. This is very expensive. It's about 35 euros, right? So people will use this. And we found them as part of forensic investigations. What else? Well, we take your laptop, and you might say, yeah, but I have File Vault on my MacBook. I have BitLocker. I have Lux on Linux. Well, we can bypass all of that. Sorry. So please look up our cold boot attack where using, again, a can of compressed air. I mean, screw security policies, right? Just forbid compressed air. You're going to be safe. You turn around the laptop. You reprogram the BIOS. You hit the memory with cold air. It will remember the private key in memory. You boot from a USB stick. You extract the key. You decrypt the drive. We can do this in about 2 to 3 minutes. If you want to see a demo of this, go to YouTube later on or Google the cold boot attack by F-Secure. Not a new technique, but we did do new things with it. So now we're in the computer, yes, and now we have to transfer the money, yes, and now we know why the customer smiled in a funny way to us. Because if you want to make transfers above 5,000 euros, you have to provide a fingerprint. Now you might do 2,500 transactions, but the idea was to make 5,000, right? Right, so fingerprints are secure, right? Your fingerprint and your face is your username. It is not your password. It will never be your password. When you lost your key, you know when you lost it. When you lose your fingerprints, you won't know if someone is reusing it. You can change a password. Well, technically you can change your fingerprints, but it's going to hurt like hell, right? So maybe you don't want to do that every 6 months. Or a year. I'm benign. Now, here's a small secret for you. Spoiler alert. People don't always wash their hands, which means after lunch, there's a fingerprint on there. And using a little bit of tape, Scotch tape, we can take off the fingerprint, put it on a piece of paper, invert it, print it, and replay the actual fingerprint. Either using toilet paper, or there's ones that just come out of the box. They've never been tested. They're too sensitive, which means you just print it on a piece of paper. You just push your finger on it, you make it a little bit wet, and it says like, yeah, that's you. And I can transfer money. Does that mean fingerprint scanners don't work? No, they do work. But you do need to calibrate them. You do need to adapt them to what they're supposed to do. And if someone fails 20 times in a row, someone should be aware of that. That should produce a log somewhere. So again, every single security control will fall on its face, will fail if there's no other layers to catch it. It is the combination of layers that gives you security. Not one product, not one box. So now we're in. Great. So, usually I get two kinds of reactions when I tell people that I was able to breach your organization, which is, it's not true, the attack is not realistic, or, yeah, we knew about that. Really? Then why did you hire us? Because if you already knew, you could have fixed it. But unfortunately, there's still politics. So, understanding the paths towards someone on the street, someone on the internet, towards taking over your company, keeping your data hostage, is a matter of threat modeling. What can go wrong? Will someone internally from the IT department update the load balancer with the wrong firmware and now no one can access our stuff? We're going to lose our customers. That should be also part of your threat model. It's not just attackers. But knowing or basically predicting what an attacker will do is key here. You cannot stop a targeted attack, but what you can do is force the attacker to make mistakes. Mistakes you can detect. And that way, you can have a discussion with your boss saying, we're being attacked a lot, and your boss says, no, it's not, and you go, here's the logs. We are, and we need more help. Now you have a fact-based discussion that's no longer based on fear. So being able to detect targeted attacks and being able to respond efficiently is what gives you cyber resilience, which hopefully makes you think and act like an attacker saying, how can I abuse this? So start by threat modeling. Start by looking at the worst case scenarios. Protect your access card, hashtag protect your access card, and keep following our research because there's lots of interesting things to come. Thank you so much for your attention. Finally.
Jedno pytanie.
On that porn email that you had, that was spoofing email to make someone click your link, just for curiosity, what was the link if someone clicked confirm my email address to the Pornhub?
Oh, that one. That's actually a good question. I've never had that one before. It actually goes to a page that will confirm it, but I've never had anyone click on it. But we do look for it, because it's interesting presentation material. We never put the names of the people on the report, by the way. But no one has ever clicked it. Only unsubscribe. So we're still waiting.